Why was it important to check inside a footman's electric kettle before turning it on? Why was it particularly embarrassing to be called a MILF in royal circles? And did Prince Charles really declare to Diana that he was leaving her for Camilla over her hospital bed after she'd just given birth to Prince Harry? Hello, I'm Jo Elvin and welcome to a very special episode of Palace Confidential, Authorised, where we explore the latest, most jaw-dropping royal books. And oh, what a book it is today. We are in the company of one of the most intriguing authors. We have none other than Paul Burrell, who from 1976 was footman to Queen Elizabeth II, then butler to Charles and Diana from 1987, then exclusively served as butler to Diana from 1992 until her untimely and tragic death in 1997 at the age of 36. Paul, welcome.
Thank you for having
welcome
me.
to my parlour.
Thank you.
It's very grand,
it's
isn't
very
it?
grand.
Now, Paul's latest book, The Royal Insider, includes never-before-published details of his working relationship with the late Queen, his experience of watching young Princes William and Harry grow up, as well as his no-holds-barred views on the damage wrought by Harry and Meghan's Right Royal Wrecking Ball. But first, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the Daily Mail Royals YouTube channel. What's in it for you, I hear you ask? Well, let me tell you, that is how you make sure that you're up to date with all of our exclusive content as soon as it's released. That's Palace Confidential, Reading the Royals, Acting Royal, Palace Authorised, all the good stuff. But there's more if you want the free Palace Confidential newsletter to be sent directly to your inbox every Thursday. Just scan the QR code that's on your screen now with your camera phone, or if you're watching on a phone right now, just click the handy link below. See, all angles covered, and that's all my plugs done, Paul. I feel we can get going.
That's a lot.
I know. So we do give a lot here at the YouTube channel. Now, I'm going to start with the most important question. I have to know, why is it particularly embarrassing to be called a MILF in royal circles?
Well, a MILF means other things in our world, doesn't it?
Yes, it does, and I probably
I didn't realise
won't
that.
be allowed to say. Did you not realise that?
realise
I
that.
love your innocence.
I didn't realise that when I wrote it, but it's because I witnessed someone making a cup of tea once, but on the sideboard, and his wife, a duchess, screamed across the dining room, "Oh, darling, don't do that. That's what the common people do. You're a MILF."
Oh.
And he looked around and she said, "You're a MILF." He said, "Why am I a MILF?" "You're a milk in first."
Milk in first.
Yes.
In tea.
In tea. So it's much more innocent than you think.
Okay, so am I just common as Mark Aussie, or to me, milk in first is quite high treason when it comes to making a cup of tea?
It is.
You're the butler. Come on,
Yes.
you tell me, what's the
Now,
proper?
Tea is poured into the cup through a strainer, loose leaf tea, and then sweetened with sugar or honey, and then milk, if it's preferred. Because if
Americans,
the
don't let them tell you anything else. That's it.
If the milk's put in first, how do you know how much milk to put in the cup?
Oh,
See,
honestly,
think about it. It's logic,
See,
really.
I could actually talk about this for 2 hours, but we should not. Now, let's get back to your book, The Royal Insider. Now, this journey really started for you in 1976 when you were in catering college.
I was, yes.
It's amazing. And you applied to work in Buckingham Palace as a footman, and you were eventually offered the job. And right away, you discovered that people were making bets initially on how you would fare, but not in the way that you might have thought.
No, there was a betting list on young footmen entering the palace as to who would get to them first.
Oh.
I.e., who would get into their bedroom first and into their bed first.
Okay.
Because Buckingham Palace was a very gay environment with lots of older gay men who had been there forever. And you were fresh meat.
Gosh, this is like all long before the Me Too movement.
You know, I was told when I got to the palace, don't forget to lock your door at night. I said, well, why should I have to lock my door? It should be safe. The Queen's fast asleep downstairs. If it's safe enough for her, it's safe enough for me. Why do I have to lock my door? Well, because the older brigade will be on patrol and they'll try to get into your room. So every night I lock my door. Every night, religiously, I lock my door. One night I forgot. And in the early hours of the morning, I awoke to find a naked man trying to climb into my bed. Now, I was only 18 years old. I'd never experienced any personal relationships before. And I woke up with a start and said, if you don't leave my room now, I'll I'll go and phone the police and get them to take you out of my room. So he got out of the bed, picked up all his clothes and disappeared.
Right.
And that person was a very senior aide in the royal household.
Do you think things have changed? It feels like that was just an accepted violation.
It was accepted at the time, but I think things must have changed since then because, as you say, the Me Too movement and
Did you report that incident?
I didn't report it for fear of losing my job.
Oh, man, yeah.
Because, you see, I suddenly realised I got the best job in the world. I was at Buckingham Palace. I didn't go down the coal mine like my brothers did. And I thought if I ruffled too many feathers, that they might boot me out.
Wow.
So I had to put up with it.
Okay, but is that the worst thing that happened?
I think that's probably the worst thing that happened. But from then on, you see, you're privy to lots of secrets of the royals. And like us, they're quite ordinary people at the end of the day. And you're meant to see things and then forget them. And to be seen and not heard.
But I think things are different now.
I'm sure things are different now. Well, I know things are different now because Buckingham Palace back in the day was the home to so many people, including me, and must have been 100 members of staff that lived inside Buckingham Palace. And today, since it's been refurbished, there are nobody lives inside the palace. No chefs, no footmen, no butlers. They live elsewhere.
But not only did it sound, populated in your book, but it sounds like quite rock and roll. It's like
yes.
Even on duty, you mentioned a footman once staggering past the Queen without even noticing her.
Drink ran through the veins of Buckingham Palace. Booze was the currency. And very often you'd see a footman walking through the palace with the Russell Hobbs electric kettle, and you'd think nothing of it. It wasn't full of water, it was full of gin.
Wow.
Because there's more gin that ran through Buckingham Palace than anything else. Everybody drank.
Why were they putting gin in the kettles?
To disguise it.
Okay.
To take it to other locations. To be drunk at parties in other places. It was a riot, actually, living there. But you think about this world, it was a bubble. A world by itself.
Well, I very much enjoyed your list of the Queen's priorities.
Yes.
After being the Queen, Elizabeth II's priorities were horses, dogs, husband and children, and in that order. Now,
absolutely.
And I imagine that she was quite frank and vocal about that, even with her kids.
Yes, they all knew.
How did they feel?
No, they all knew that if Mummy or Granny was going to the races, nothing would top that.
What about poor old Prince Philip? Where did he fit into all this hierarchy of animals and packs? And
after animals, husband.
Yeah.
Devoted to Prince Philip. And he was devoted to her.
With it, as something that fascinated me as a child, my father always used to talk about how in public he must always walk 2 steps behind her. But was it different in private?
In private, he was in charge of the house.
Right.
He was CEO of the family business. Everything was deferred to Prince Philip. And very often I go into the Queen and say, "Oh, Your Majesty, where are you having lunch on the hillside today?" "I have no idea." "Go and ask Prince Philip.
Right.
He'll know." So Prince Philip managed the household and managed the children.
Yes, which
he was the guardian at the gate.
It seems that what you're saying as well is that changed a lot then when he passed and
Yes.
put a lot more strain on the actual Queen.
There was, because as soon as Prince Philip wasn't there, the floodgates opened and everybody had accessibility to the Queen. Whilst Prince Philip was alive, the children knew and the grandchildren knew no one bothers the Queen with trivia. No one bothers the Queen until it's really, really necessary. Because she has enough on her plate being Queen and looking after the country. So when he wasn't there, everybody came to the Queen's door and bothered her with problems.
Well, times have changed then, haven't they, since there's this detail in the book that I think will shock some viewers. You claim that when he was a teenager, if Prince Charles wanted to speak to his mother,
yes,
he had to make an appointment over the phone. And
that's right.
That he ate his meals in the royal nursery until he was quite an older teen.
Yes. If you look at Buckingham Palace, if you stand there watching the change of the guards, look up to the right. The very top right rooms are the royal nursery. And that's where Prince Charles was until he came of age.
So 16.
He lived there until he was 16. He came there, he lived there with Nanny Mabel Anderson who is still alive today.
Wow.
She's
How old is she?
99 years old and lives in Grace and Favour accommodation in the Home Park.
Go Nanny.
Nanny,
Yeah.
Nanny, surrogate mother, lived totally upset in the nursery. And if he wanted to come down for lunch or tea, he'd ring down. And I worked with the page. A page and a footman worked together, and one of us would answer the phone in the pantry. And he would say, oh, is it possible that I could come down and see the Queen, not my mother, the Queen at lunchtime? I'm sorry, Your Royal Highness, but the Queen has guests for lunch, and that's not possible. Well, could I see her for tea? Well, I'm afraid she has guests for tea as well, so I'll ask the Queen when will be convenient for you to come down.
I'm going to ask you a cheeky question. Did she ever go, oh, is it Charles?
No. No, because you wouldn't bother her with the trivia. You wouldn't bother with that. You'd say, Prince Charles wants to come and see you. When would be convenient for you? It's knowing how to phrase certain questions and answers. And very invariably, you knew the answer anyway.
It's another psychologically illuminating detail, I think, about Charles, as Prince Philip would often berate him, and a common theme being saying to his son, you've made a bloody mess of everything on a loop. I mean, that's got to have an impact.
Well, I don't think Charles was the favourite child. Charles was berated on a regular basis.
Do you think Philip wanted a manly man in his image, and so it was a bit disappointing at first?
Charles was never alpha male. Philip was. And Philip wanted somebody like himself. So whenever Charles did something wrong, he knew about it. You're a bloody idiot. Get out of the way.
You can just hear it, can't you?
You blithering idiot. You made a bloody mess of everything. And he would let go. And Charles would disappear with his tail between his legs because he was the son and heir. And Philip, in a way, was trying to toughen him up for the role which would come his way one day. I remember on one occasion he came downstairs for a diplomatic reception. They were wearing white tie and black tailcoats, and the Queen would, on her dress, would wear the Garter Star with the Garter Sash. And Charles came downstairs, he's wearing the Order of the Bath, the Order of the Thistle, the Order of St. Michael and St. George, and the Order of the Bath, all these beautiful stars glittering away in diamonds, rubies, and emeralds. And look at the Queen. She was wearing an enamelled Garter Star, no diamonds in sight. Prince Philip took one look at him and said, you're a bloody idiot. Go upstairs and change. Look at your mama. Your mama's wearing 1 star. You're wearing 4. So he had to
get
go
it right.
away. Couldn't get it right. Had to go upstairs, get changed, came down in a more demure fashion.
Let's not make the mistake. Obviously, the way you painted the Queen could also be capable of a temper. She was not always sweetness and light.
No, the Queen did have a temper, and if Hurricane Elizabeth happened to come through the room, everybody disappeared. And if she looked at you over her half-rimmed spectacles, you knew. If you looked, she stared straight at you, you knew.
Wow.
And no one wanted to upset the Queen. Nobody. We were there to make her life better, easier, and to be of assistance, not to be of a hindrance.
Did you ever feel admonished?
I sometimes felt that cold wind blow through my pantry. Yes, but it was short-lived.
Yeah, but why were you called the Beast?
The Beast. I was the Beast. Nothing to do with Beauty and the Beast. At Sandringham, the Queen's want was to mix a martini before she went upstairs to change, or a gin and tonic. And she placed it on the tray and disappeared. And the drawing room was empty, and I thought, it's time to clear up. Boys, come in, take away the dirty glasses, plump up the cushions, let's take away all the drinks and have a quick ourselves. We'd finish off all the drinks. I told you it was a drinking household. And I'd just finished off the Queen's drink, and she shouted from the drawing room. She'd come back downstairs, "The Beast! The Beast! He's stolen my drink! And it was a brand new drink." Now you would think that this is the crown jewels I'd taken.
I was going to say, I'm sure we can rustle you up another one, Your Majesty.
Oh, I did, very quickly. I did, very quickly, and presented it. Oh, thank you so much. I thought I'd lost it forever.
Do not come between a queen and her gin.
No. Absolutely.
Now, you wouldn't have gone on to work for Prince Charles in 1987 were it not for an intervention by her who saved you from dismissal after a military police raid. What's this all about?
Well, I've never spoken about this before.
Okay.
It's now in the public domain, and I thought I should be honest, raw and frank, even if it might be detrimental to me. Tell the truth. So what happened was, when I was very young, and I was only 19 years old, I happened to have a very close friendship with a sailor on board the Royal Yacht Britannia. Now, of course, I didn't realise it was illegal for any member of the armed forces to have a homosexual relationship. It's illegal in the armed forces. I never knew that. Not illegal for a civilian, but illegal for them.
No, I never knew that either.
No.
Yeah.
So, the military police raided the Royal Yacht Britannia and all the lockers of the seamen and took away evidence. And I'd written a few letters to a chap on board the yacht, and the whole report came to the Queen and landed on her desk. The Master of the Household thought it was in the Queen's best interest to set me to one side for a short time. So I was relieved of my duties for a day whilst the Queen read the report and considered what to do. After a day had expired and I was devastated to not be on duty and sent to my room to wait the Queen's decision, I was summoned back on duty. And I went down the corridor. I'll never forget this day. And I went down the corridor and the Queen was already feeding the dogs, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, stood there with a silver spoon and fork in her hand, and she was dolloping out pedigree chum into yellow plastic Tupperware bowls, as if nothing had happened. And I stood there, sweating profusely, thinking my fate is in her hands. What is she going to say? She looked over her spectacles, those half-rimmed spectacles,
right.
And I thought, is Hurricane Elizabeth about to be unleashed? But no, it's the opposite. She said, I've read everything that's happened. I don't think it's a very wise move for you, Paul. Have you ever thought about getting married? I said, Your Majesty, I'm only 19. I haven't really thought about my future. She said, well, let me give you some advice. Have a look around the palace. There are some lovely young girls that work here. It would make you a wonderful wife. And believe me, it's a wonderful institution. And then when children arrive, it's the glue that holds it all together. So, dolloping another dish of pedigree chum, she said, will you promise me you'll do that? I said, of course I will.
She really was a mother figure to you, wasn't she?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, of course, I thought that's my telling off from the Queen of England. She's read everything. She knows everything about me. And that was a telling off. How lucky was I? So I went into the garden with the corgis that afternoon and thought, phew, that's it. I'm safe. She saved me. And she did. She saved me because she said I'd done no wrong.
Well, quite. But then that conversation obviously had an impact on how you went forward with your sexuality.
It did. You see, I wanted to be married. I wanted children. That was my wish in life. And ever since I was a young boy, growing up in a coal mining community, that's what I prayed for. I prayed to God to find me a wife and let me have a family and be normal. And so I did. I fell in love with a maid, Prince Philip's maid, in fact. And the Queen was absolutely delighted. She said, it's wonderful. This is a royal wedding downstairs.
Oh.
She says, we'll give you gifts. So we went, the two of us, two innocents, went into her sitting room. Prince Philip stood beside the Queen and she said, I wanted to give you a clock with our initials on it. We still have that. And Philip said, and I want to give you candlesticks just to light your way, which I thought was unbelievable. And we left that sitting room I don't ever remember another royal servant going in there, announcing their marriage and coming away with gifts. And then the Queen said to me, where are you getting married? Chapel Royal. I said, oh no, Your Majesty, she's Catholic. We have to get married in Catholic church. Well, I'll send my priest then instead, and he can officiate. So we had an Anglican priest in a Catholic church doing the marriage ceremony. Then she said, where are you going on honeymoon? I said, well, we're thinking of going to Burrel, Your Majesty, in North Wales. And she looked at me puzzled, and she said, Burrel? Oh no, she said, I think you'll go to Balmoral.
Oh my goodness.
So we went to Balmoral.
No offence, Burrel.
No, Burrel's a lovely place. I spent my childhood in Burrel at the miners' holiday camp.
Yeah.
A great place, but no, she had other ideas.
That's amazing. Let's move it back to Charles and Diana for a minute.
Yeah.
Because I just could listen to you talk all day, but we got a bit off track. It's because we were talking about when you first went to work with Charles and Diana, and you described it as already being a war zone, and that was 1987.
It was. In 1987, when I left the Queen, I was called up to the lady-in-waiting sitting room, and one of the Queen's lady-in-waiting said to me, Paul, over a cup of Darjeeling, she said, Paul, all isn't what it seems. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, I'm afraid you're about to find out that things are not quite right in the Wales household. But she said, remember my words. I think you're backing the loser. And don't become too friendly with Diana, because she'll be gone in a couple of years and forgotten. And I went to Highgrove with those words ringing in my ears, thinking, what does she mean? And I suddenly found out that the royal marriage was falling apart. And I was in the middle of all of this. And I was there at Highgrove with my wife and my children. I'd given up the best job in the world to come and be butler at Highgrove, thinking, I've made the biggest mistake of my life. I have really done the wrong thing. And at the time, there were people persuading me to stay with the Queen. And you know, my heart wanted to stay with the Queen. I loved the Queen. She was good with me. And I could see myself staying with her for the rest of her life. But I needed to do something for my family. And when I left the Queen, of course, I had to say to her, Your Majesty, I don't know how to tell you this. And she said, you don't have to. Charles has already discussed it with me. And you're leaving for the most honourable reasons, Paul. Think about it. You're leaving for your family to give them a better life in the countryside. It's no life to bring up a family in London. And think of this as well. When I'm dead and gone, Charles and Diana will be here, King and Queen, and you'll be back in this same place doing the same job.
There was a lot of wrong predictions back in those days, weren't there?
She thought they would work it out.
Yeah, I guess, well, because duty, you know, that was her tradition and her way. This claim is astonishing, and I think a lot of people might struggle to believe it. Is it actually true that when Charles visited Diana in hospital after the birth of Prince Harry, he said to her, and I quote, well, at least I've got my heir and spare, and now I can return to Camilla.
Yes.
What kind of a person says something like that?
A hard, cold, unfeeling person. Diana told me this story herself. And I told this story to Harry. Well, and I said, Harry, this is the truth. I'm going to tell you the truth. Do you want to hear it? And he said, yes.
When did you tell Harry that?
Just as you became engaged to Meghan Markle.
Right, okay. So
he wasn't very happy.
I bet. Yeah.
He said, is it true about the spare story? I said, yes, it's true, and let me tell you the story. And I told him the story, and he said, oh, why didn't you tell me that before? I said, because I couldn't get to you. You and William were taken away from my world when your mother died, and you were protected behind closed doors and police around you. They would never let me speak to you.
Why did you want to tell William and Harry that?
I wanted to tell them because I always said to everyone, I've always told the truth. The truth is the truth and cannot be changed. My mother always said, it's like a bottle of milk. The cream comes to the top. And if I witnessed it, personally, was part of my world too. I can tell that story. I told it also to protect Diana's legacy in a way. Because at the time, people didn't understand how much she was suffering. This is a time before mental illness. We knew about all of this. And she was suffering. And she didn't have any allies. Not really. Prince Philip tried.
I mean, I have to say, I suppose it's probably fair to think that with everything we've talked about in Charles's life and the way he was brought up, that perhaps he had his own mental struggles as well, and maybe it's not fair to judge him on that one.
No, maybe not.
Yeah.
But in that world, as the Queen Mother always said, well, Diana's such a silly girl. Doesn't she realise men have affairs? That's the mentality way back in the 1970s and 1980s within the royal family. You can't judge it on today's standards. You have to go back then to see how it was working. And it wasn't working back then. Diana was brought into that world, shoved in the deep end after the Balmoral test and told, you've got to swim or sink.
And
There's
that's
no way back.
A lot of that is what Meghan has discussed in the past, isn't it? Let's talk about them, because you believe that Meghan Markle thought she was marrying into a sort of a starring role in the royal family, and then, but then it became apparent that Catherine, as the wife of William to the heir, was the real star wife, and then and she struggled with that.
Yes, I don't think Meghan ever considered being a supporting actress. I think she wanted to be a star. You
wrote in the book, if Harry's marriage were to flounder, which I believe may be inevitable, he will return to England. Why do you say inevitable?
I think the two cultures which came together in the marriage of Harry and Meghan, there's a fault line down the middle of it. And I feel that will crack one day. Think about it. Harry came from this very busy world of the royal family with lots to do. Even in his spare time, he could play polo and do whatever he wanted. He sat in Montecito, twiddling his thumbs, thinking, what do I do next? What is my role? Where is my work? And I think that will wear thin in time. As Meghan rises in Netflix firmament into whatever she will do, fashion, beauty, whatever, jam,
politics,
wine,
maybe?
Politics, marry a, well, eventually. I think it won't be enough for Meghan and it won't be enough for Harry. And she will just go off and her next step is a billionaire. Because she's got millions, so why not step up to a billionaire? And why not go for politics? Why not become governor of California?
You will upset a lot of Sussex fans with that who really believe it's love's young dream and they're in it for life and they're happier out of the royal family and they're happier in California than ever before.
Well, there are always two sides to a story.
Yeah.
And I listen to that regularly, but I know this young man. I know this young man. I was there. I met him when he was in his mummy's tummy.
Yeah.
She took her hand and put my hand on her tummy and said, you feel that? That's Harry. That's when I met him. I've watched him grow as a young boy. I know his makeup. I know what he likes and what he doesn't like. He's petulant in a way. Yes, he's entitled in a way. Underneath it all, he's a very kind, sensitive man. But I'm afraid that's been eclipsed by history and what's happened since. I truly believe that when he met Meghan, she whispered into his ear, a 36-year-old mature woman whispered into his ear, Harry, you and I could change the world. And I don't think he heard Meghan's voice. I think he heard his mother's voice. And that's what he was searching for. He was searching for the love which he had with his mother.
Wow. Do you foresee, on the day of the ascension of William to be king, that he will strip Harry and Meghan of their titles?
That's interesting, isn't it? I've thought about that, but that would only make Meghan a princess.
Right.
Because the royal titles were bestowed on Meghan and Harry by the Queen. The Queen gave them the Dukedom of Sussex, which made Meghan a Duchess. That is a gift, a royal gift. That can be taken away. What can't be taken away is the title Prince. Harry was born a prince. So if the titles Duke and Duchess were taken away from Meghan and Harry, Meghan would become Princess Meghan.
Right.
What's the worst of the two evils?
What do you think?
I think that William should leave well alone. It's done.
He might have a lot on. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the Queen's gift, and it should be kept. They shouldn't be able to use it for commercial gain, as the Queen wished, but leave well alone.
Okay, let's move on. I want to talk about, one of the most defining days of your life, as well as many people's, is the awful day when Diana passed away. How did you find out what had happened to her? And you received a call from Charles not long after.
Originally, we'd come back from the theatre. We'd been to see a show or something. And the telephone rang, late at night, come midnight. It was Lucia Fletcher Lima, the Brazilian ambassador's wife in London. She was a very good friend of Diana's. She said, CNN had just reported that Diana's been in a road traffic accident in Paris. Can you find out about it, Paul? Because she's changed her number again. So the princess always changed her mobile number. So I rang her mobile number and it just rang out. And I thought, that's odd, because she always had this phone with her. Back in the day when we didn't all have mobile phones, only a certain few. So I thought, now, how am I going to find out about this? So I went up to the office, which is just yards away. And by that time, our controller, Michael Gibbons, and Jackie Allen, the princess's PA, had arrived, and they were all concerned. We had a call from Balmoral about 3 a.m. to say that the princess had been in an accident. She was hurt, but she was fine. She was alive. This is at 3 a.m. So I thought, right, if she's incapacitated, I need to get to her. I need to look after her. She's not going to be good by herself. So I went to her room and I packed some things which I thought she might need from her suite of rooms. I packed a small bag for myself, had a shower, and by the time I got back to the office at 5 o'clock, we'd heard news from Balmoral that the accident was more serious than first thought. And by 6 o'clock, Jackie Allen came through the room and she said, Paul, I've got some very bad news to tell you. You're going to have to listen to what I'm saying to you very carefully. So I sat down and she said, Diana's dead. It just didn't register. Didn't register at all. I said, what do you mean? What do you mean, dead? She said, Paul, she's passed away. It still didn't register. And then I saw the room sort of disappearing. It's like everyone in it was just going down a corridor, and I'm thinking, what's happening? What is happening? And eventually the penny dropped. And of course, I was beside myself. So I said, you know what? There's even more reason for me to go to Paris now. I need to contain this situation. I need to take care of her. I know how to do it. So let me go. So they booked me a flight to Paris. The first flight in the morning, it was 7 a.m. from Heathrow. And Michael Gibbons, our controller, said, you can't go alone. Take Colin with you, our driver. He will make sure that the path is clear and you can go with him. So I went with Colin. And Colin Tebbett was the most incredible help on that day. He really did. He looked after me and everything else, because I needed looking after as well.
Yep.
We got there to Paris, we got to the ambassador's residence, then we went to the hospital, and I saw two gendarmes standing beside a door, and I thought, that's obviously where she is. I went into a side room with an Anglican priest and a Catholic priest, and they were in prayer with a nun, and the little nurse Humber, she said to me, hold my hand in broken French and I'll take you in to see her. And that's when I went into the room. A most unbelievable experience, which I think now is part of someone else's life. I can't associate with it anymore because it's so far in the past, and yet I was there. It's like a dream. Yeah, I will never forget standing there, holding her hand, and she was warm. Not like my mother, who was like a marble statue, because she died the year before, but she was warm, and I kept begging her to wake up. I said, please wake up, wake up, wake up. This is all a bad dream, just wake up. And I often have that dream.
It's astonishing.
I often have that dream.
Really?
Yeah, I do. So when we got back to London, I sent a message to the Queen at Buckingham Palace and said that all had gone well, because Charles had rung me in the hospital.
What did he say?
He said, we're all worried about you, Paul. Are you okay? I said, I'm fine, Your Royal Highness. William and Harry send their love, and the Queen's awfully concerned. Are you sure you're okay? I said, yes, I'm fine. I'm doing my job. I'm doing what I know, what I do best. Oh, well, we'll see you this afternoon. We're coming on the plane with Jane and Sarah, and you'll come back with us, won't you? I said, well, that's very kind of you, thank you. I thought, well, it's better than going back on a commercial flight. At least they took me home.
But then what was it like? Because obviously that's a great kindness and that's wonderful to hear, but all of a sudden, not only have you lost somebody who was a friend and a confidant, someone who you were intimately involved in a working relationship, but you lost your job. Your family lost their home. It just feels so...
I didn't realise that at the time.
Yeah.
My concern was to take care of her, to keep her safe and make sure no peeping eyes got to her. It was a very strange situation. I just wanted to pick her up and keep her safe. And when we came home, I told the Queen all of this, of course. I had a debriefing with her at Buckingham Palace. It's difficult to say that, isn't it? I mean, not many people get that chance to have a debrief with the Queen, but I thought, I said, Your Majesty, you must know the exact truth of everything that happened, because you may be told otherwise.
And you know, at basically this country's JFK moment, you were there.
I was there.
Yeah.
I wasn't there at the accident, but I was there shortly after. And that's when the Queen gave me a start warning, and she said, Paul, do be careful. There are forces at work in my country of which even I have no knowledge.
What does she mean by that?
You don't actually ask the Queen, well, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
Can you explain that a bit more? I suddenly thought, you're talking about MI5 and MI6, aren't you? But I can't pursue this conversation any further. We both knew what we were talking about.
What do you make of the conspiracies that haunt this tragic event?
Yes, there'll always be conspiracy theories. They'll always be there. But you know what? How could anyone determine that Diana and Dodi would be in that car, in that tunnel, at that time, for it to be premeditated? You can't.
Okay, well, let's get some of the other wild things that get speculated on. Was Diana pregnant with Dodi's baby?
No.
When she died, no. Was she engaged to Dodi?
No.
Do you believe she was murdered?
No. I believe it's a tragic accident. I think because she was so loved, because she was 36, most beautiful woman in the world, with 2 young children, I think we want to believe it was conspiracy theory. But I've seen nothing in my life that tells me that it was a premeditated murder. No. And who would sign that declaration? Who would sign that off and say, go on, go and kill Diana, my signature? Nobody. No. She's the mother of the future king. No.
Yes,
No.
I mean, it's like with most things, the normal boring explanation is the one.
The boring,
yeah.
It's just the wrong time, the wrong place
Yeah.
with the wrong person.
Tell me about when you were writing about sleeping in Diana's wardrobe in the aftermath of her death. What is this about?
I worried about writing that.
Tell me,
some people
explain
might
it
think
first.
that's-
What happened?
Well, during the aftermath of the accident, I was rattling around Kensington Palace all by myself, and eventually had to catalogue her entire estate, from a pen to a diamond brooch. And I found it cathartic in lots of ways and yet
Painful.
difficult to go through her belongings. And I would disappear. I was obviously in grief. I didn't know it, but I was. Nobody helped me. I was grieving the loss of my princess because I considered she belonged to me. I loved her very much. And I didn't want to leave her. And whilst I was in her apartments, amongst her clothes and her things, I could feel her presence. And I could smell her. She was there. She was with me in familiar territory, and I was comforted by that. And very often I'd fall asleep in her dressing room, in the bottom of her wardrobe. I know it sounds sad, but you've got to go back to the time. And I was a different person then. You've got to go back to the moment and feel the moment, not judge it from now. And I felt great comfort being there. And it was the best thing for me, because during that period of 6 months after she died, I still went to work. I still went into those rooms. I still felt her there. I still answered the phone to people who were grieving, to friends and family, and I was a constant in Diana's world.
I feel like it was such a shocking event that nobody knew how to handle it all themselves within the family. So I think it's understandable that you were sort of flailing a bit with what to do with your emotions.
Yes, but then I suddenly realised that once this was over, what did I do for a living? How did I support my family? Where would we live? Where would the boys go to school? Everything that I had invested in Diana was gone. I had to start anew. When I went to Buckingham Palace to receive my Royal Victoria Medal from the Queen, I stood in front of her and she pinned it to me and she said, well, what are you going to do now? And I said, I could come back to you, Your Majesty. And she said, that's not the answer, Paul. And it wasn't the answer, because suddenly I was known. And to do my job, I had to be invisible. And when I did my job with the Queen, no one knew who I was. When I did my job with Diana, nobody knew who I was. It wasn't until after that event that people began to find out who I was. But it spoiled my world, really.
But you did reinvent.
I had to.
And you know, on a lighter note, you even have taken part in reality shows. I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here twice in 2020,
well, I'm going to
2004 and 2022.
3 times.
3 times.
Because I did it for Australia. You never saw that version.
Okay. Gosh, that the Aussies, you didn't tell me about this. But there's a reason you think that the Queen would have made quite a poor contestant on that show. What have you got to say about that?
Well, I didn't know until recent years that she actually watched it.
Now that
Can
is
you
quite
believe
a fact.
it? That is a fact that the Queen would watch I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here when I was in it.
And phoning to make you eat all the pig's eyes and yeah.
Well, probably. But, and to eat kangaroo's testicles.
Yeah.
I just have this vision of the Queen and Prince Philip, him saying, what's that bloody idiot doing now? And the Queen's saying, oh, do shut up, Philip. and watch it. I think it's quite funny. Because they both knew me. Isn't that odd? Really weird.
Yeah, but it's all too believable. But tell me about why you think she would have been a bad contestant.
The Queen, well, she is quite hardy, but I don't think she would have loved those trials. And I don't think she would have eaten some of that food that I had to eat. She'd have a go at most things, I think. In
the book, you talk about how she was offered monkey brain at a formal dinner.
Oh, right. When we were in the South Pacific on board Britannia, I remember we had to go ashore in canoes, and we had to sit cross-legged on mats, rush matting, and I saw this monkey head going towards the Queen, and I thought, there is no way that she's going to eat that.
It's Raiders of the Lost Ark.
It is Raiders of the Lost Ark. They presented her with monkey brains, and the way she did it was she pokes things and cut them up into small pieces and move them around a bit, it makes it look as if someone's attempted to eat it. And then she was given the drink, of course, the Maori drink, but it just barely touched her lips. She didn't take a huge gulp. And I regularly took Imodium. We took Imodium on all royal tours, and everybody was
very wise.
Was well serviced. Yeah.
My final question for you, Paul Burrell.
Oh.
Did the Queen really like marmalade, or was she just being nice to Paddington?
She loved marmalade. Do you know there's been a report recently?
Did she have a favourite brand?
Yes.
Yeah?
You know, I read something recently that the Queen loved a croque monsieur for breakfast.
Oh.
Really? I never saw one in my lifetime. What she did like was a piece of granary toast measured 3 inches by 2 inches.
It's precise.
The crust cut off, very precise, onto which she would smear salted butter and then a very generous spoonful of Frank Cooper's vintage rough cut marmalade.
Yeah, that sounds very posh. Yeah.
That's what she liked.
Yeah.
She liked that bitterness of the marmalade. That was her breakfast, with a cup of Earl Grey tea with the milk in last, of course.
Oh, the Queen and I are not culinary compatible, so I hate marmalade and I hate Earl Grey.
That was her breakfast. Very simple. Listening to Terry Wogan on the radio, on her Roberts radio, which after breakfast, having listened to the bagpipes beneath her window, she would go through to her dressing room to dress before calling her private secretary. Every day was the same. She lived a regimental life.
Incredible. Oh, Paul, come round my house for dinner. I need to hear more and more and more of this, but we have run out of time today. But,
oh, wow.
But it has been fascinating. Thank you for what has been a riveting interview. For our viewers and listeners at home, or wherever you enjoy our royal content, I'm talking to you, Veronica Allen, while watching at work. Yes, you too can find a link to Paul's book below. It's The Royal Insider. A reminder that you can sign up to the free royal newsletter by going to the link in the description below, or by using your phone camera to scan the QR code that you'll find on your screen now. If you love Palace Confidential, and why wouldn't you? You'll love the newsletter as well. And it's just time to say thanks again to my very special guest, Paul Burrell, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.